click on this broadcast.
All right, you're live.
What is going on, everybody? Excited to be here. This is Kyle Allen, the managing partner of our Vaco Nashville office. I'm excited to be here with you guys today to talk a little bit about culture from a leadership standpoint and kind of what we do at Vaco and how that happens. So excited to be here to talk to you guys about that. There's a Q&A. My computer is here looking for questions. Excited to see what you guys have questions to ask and answer those as they come in. So I think the biggest thing with culture is it just starts at the top with leadership, understanding that and really reinforcing your company's values. We have core tenets here at Vaco. There's 11 of them we run through and we reinforce and talk about a lot. And we highlight our employees that meet those standards and core tenets, and we celebrate that. And so I think that's one thing. If you guys as an organization don't have those values or aren't thinking about those or talking about those a lot with your employees, that's something to think about through this quarantine world we're living in and really reinforcing those. So I think another really big part of the culture is just your employees getting behind it, asking their opinions frequently. I know when I first came into a leadership position, I was asking for feedback and would really not get a lot of it because I think people are unsure that I really want the feedback, you know? And so when you get the feedback, you got to do something with it. And so I think it's understanding, it just gives them a voice, make sure they're heard, and understanding every employee here is different, their situation is different, and what they want and need and what's important to them is different. So, and I think with that, being approachable is a really big factor with that. And so as a leadership team is being approachable, being available, listening is a really key thing that I've had to work on myself, and not having all the answers for what people are talking about, but really being around and being an ear to your employees. And so just empowering them to bring ideas and bring projects and things they want to do with that is really, really key. And so just being available. And inside that, for me and what we've done at Vaco is just one-on-ones, sit-downs. I do office hours, which actually came from just me evolving as a leader and people listening. I'm listening to people telling me to slow down a little bit. And so I have, every week would sit down with people 1 to 2, and on Thursday is when I do my office hours. And people can just pop in, talk to me for 5, 10, 15 minutes and move on. But I think that's been a helpful way for people to know that I care as a leader, and that's super important. We do it at Vaco, and my other leaders do that as well. And I think just empowering your employees to drive the culture, because it's not the leaders that drive it, it's the leaders that set the table to have a feast for the employees and a great culture to work in. So, but mentorship is another one, and people want to be led, they want to learn, they want to grow. And so we have a buddy system here at Vaco that we're partnered with, and so everybody's paired with somebody internally, more of a peer-to-peer deal, and then everybody kind of obviously gets one-on-one time with their leadership team as well. And so it's a good piece for that. Trying to think what else. Training is a big one for us that we've really emphasized as a group, as a one-on-one aspect of that people want, consistency, and trying to get through that, surveys and whatnot, telling us what we do there. So, but I think the biggest thing for us is people want to be recognized. And I think a lot of people say, hey, employees want gifts and you got to shower them with all this. 83% of the people from a recognition.com, I think that's what it was, survey says they want to be just recognized. They want to be praised, emails, recognized for their accomplishments. And so I think just small emails and just gratitude and letting them know that they're seen is a great way to create a culture, create people to be heard in that environment. So what else? Anything coming in question-wise? I'm sure they're flying in. Got one there. So I think the next biggest thing for us is team bonding. And just getting to know your employees on a personal level. Who are they? And so they don't just come to the office and they're an employee. Like, who are they outside the office as well? They're either a sister, a brother, a dad, a mom, They have kids, they not have kids, like understanding who they are and what drives them outside the office is really important. And then collaboratively getting together as a team. And so I think a lot of people take team bonding as you got to spend money to have team bonding. That is true. You do need to spend some dollars behind it, but I think the planning aspect is so key to understanding that and providing a culture and events. And whether it's, we do a lot of stuff with nonprofits, or it's just team outings and group settings, and we do sounds, we go to the sounds games, different things like that. That's super, super important. So, and I think really empowering your people and getting behind what they're involved with from a volunteer standpoint. And so for us, it's Safe Haven, American Heart, are a few that come to mind that we really get behind. And so I really want to give money and give time to the organizations that the people that work with me give their time to as well. And so we have events for that. We had a carnival for the American Heart, and having my folks just run with that and empowering them. And it was a super successful event that our employees loved, and it was so, so fun. So I think that's a great way and to show that. And there's could be also just breakouts in the middle of the day and doing fun things and plan things. And so getting a team to help plan those and being intentional is super, super beneficial on that front. And I think just going back to the personal side of who they are outside the office is just celebrating them with milestones, right? And so if it's about understanding what it is it what's important? Are they celebrating an anniversary at the office here for work? Is it a birthday? And also the grief side, right? Did they lose somebody? Was there a loss of somebody in their family? And just treating them as a person and not a employee is really, really, really key. And I think as leaders that when you create a culture that people want to thrive in and they feel a family, I think it really comes for leaders just to care. And I think people just want to know that they're cared for and that you care about them. And so I think that's a really big piece that I try to give to people, and I think it pushes across all our leadership teams is that, hey, we're here to work, and there's a reason why we're here, right? But while we're at work, there's no reason. We take the whole person, right? Our CEO always says that, you interview somebody and you get the resume, and the first day the whole person shows up, right? And that's what we try to know that and take them who they are, right? And be accepting of everybody. So that's really, really key. Some things we've done, the whole quarantine going virtual has been interesting. There's some things that I've failed at personally, is having too many meetings and too many one-on-ones and just overwhelming my folks at the beginning and recognizing that and listening and what do you need. And so I think it's been an interesting time, probably the most challenging time is from a leadership standpoint in my career, balancing, is everybody working? Are they not? Where are they? Do they have what they need to be successful? Has been interesting. And I think from a virtual world, balancing that, having virtual happy hours, or we've done scavenger hunts virtually. We've come up with a bingo night, which is really fun. So there's some interesting ways to stay in tune with your folks and knowing what they're going on in situations like that. And as we come back into the office, I think it's really important to just hear what their issues are, right? If it's childcare, or just letting them be heard and understanding that each situation is different and unique and treating as such. So what else? Culture-wise, wellness programs. We do have questions. All right, I'll get to them. Wellness programs, and we have a gym here, and so there's different that we really encourage health and all that stuff as well. So questions, where are they? As I scroll, Kaylee, good job, thank you. Do I feel personality testing, strength finders to highlight specific skills, talents that do enhance teams? It's a great question from Kate. I do. One tool that I use here is the Enneagram. So I had all my folks take the Enneagram, and I think that is a really great way for me to understand. If you haven't used the Enneagram, everybody has a number 1 through 9, and typically everybody hates the number they have, right? But it showcases kind of how they process information, what drives them, what do they want? Do they want verbal recognition? How are they? And so there's some patterns of folks that we have in the office that are certain numbers, and there are also people in the office that I think their numbers have shifted some as they studied it more, because they're like, well, he's this, and I guess I should be that. But I think the more you study it, the more it is. So I think that's I think you have to establish a baseline of like, okay, what works, but I think from a leadership standpoint, it all can work, but everybody can be motivated. You just got to understand how the individual is motivated and what that is. So that's a good question, but I definitely think that's great. The DISC profile is another one that we've used in the past, or we do use, and so from evaluating talent to come on board. So I definitely love that. What else? Perfect. And then Kim is answering emails for people looking for jobs, so that's awesome. What else? And I think I talked about this a bit, but I think just, and I kind of reiterate, just showing empathy is a really big piece of that, and knowing you're there, and then also too is people want to be held accountable for what they're working towards, and so on the culture piece is I think that just establishes a good info for that. And so just remembering everybody handles things differently, everybody handles this quarantine and this isolation differently, and so trying to be hard charging and all over somebody all the time is not great, but also empowering somebody of like, hey, here's the blueprint, go execute, and empowering them to go do that is really, really good. And I think, for us, we have weekly meetings that we all come together as an office each week. And we do different things, kickoffs and contests and associated with that. So it's always fun to keep it lighthearted. And then having one-on-ones smaller with your teams, your groups, and sit downs and whatnot on that. And then I think the biggest thing for us, and what I've learned, the biggest takeaway from the quarantine world and the being virtual, is just being flexible and being understanding and listening. I think I've taken it to where I have my ideas set, and this is probably the best way for the office, and just listening to other people, and it's another viewpoint, right? And maybe I don't agree with it completely, but I'm like, I've never thought like that. And I think this has taught me on the work from home situation, and where I think a lot of leaders are like, well, if the individual's not in the seat, they're not working. And I don't know if I believe that anymore, right? And so I think if the people trust, I trust them that they're getting the job done. You can do at least our job from really anywhere. And so kind of how do we recreate our normal week, right? And so once we kind of get back into the flow, can the folks that work with me be more beneficial to be at home 1 or 2 days a week, right? I don't know what that looks like, and maybe it's one day, or maybe it's none. Maybe nobody wants that. But I think just having that conversation with some of those employees and letting their voice be heard and bring it up and, okay, how do we go execute, right? It's not me leading that charge is, I think, really, really key from that front. So trying to think on the culture thing, but it's a really big piece that at Vaco, we have a really unique point of view to look inside to so many companies in the Nashville area, and then all of our 42 other offices. We see so many things that are done right, and we see so many things that are done wrong, and get to kind of cheat off so many people's papers for how they do it. But I will say this, the overarching reason of why people leave organizations, they don't leave for more money. They leave because it's a bad culture, a bad boss, bad leadership. And that is just, it's key to understanding, if you're watching right now as a leader, like this is a really big piece of succession planning and thriving and growing your business. Because if people can't get behind what you're doing and they become part of it, like for our team here, like I don't drive a lot of what's going on. I just let it happen around me. And that's what's so fantastic about working at a place like Vaco, and that the leadership team above me lets me do that as well, and the people that work with me support me in that. So I think that's really key to understand as far as, and be creative. A lot of those things that you're doing culture-wise, everybody's like, well, we got to go spend all this money. It could be as easy, just starting with a simple ask. I try not to survey my office too much, but I really do want to know what they are thinking. And if I don't ask, I don't know. And I think I've learned a ton from so many people in my office that I continue to learn from and listen to. And I'm not perfect. I've had so many ideas that have gone bad, and understanding when I'm like, this is terrible. I was thinking this is going to be something, and it's not. But I think understanding that, I'm never the smartest guy in the room, first off. That's never the possibility. But just as a leader, you can say, I don't know, or I'm not sure. But empowering people to drive a process or what. So I think that's great. What else do we have? Questions? Do you think a virtual company culture will continue as important in person as when we return to their offices? I definitely think so. I mean, I think what's been great about this, I think that being in the virtual world has caused people to just rethink everything about their business. So you're looking at just how revenue's coming in the door, how do we operate the business, and then how do we take care of our people? So I think they're looking at all three of those things, and I definitely think I don't want to say the new norm. I think it's just a new beginning of how we're looking at things and how we're going forward. Things are going to change, and I think as a leader and people that are around leadership, the more comfortable you get with change, the more you're going to grow as an individual. Because if we stay the same, doing the same thing over and over again, it gets stale. Things change around you, and you're not able to do that. So I definitely think the culture definitely is going to change because of it, which is awesome. How do you keep your culture intact as company grows? This is tough. This is something that we at Vaco have really, really held tight onto as we've become a $750 million company. It's a lot easier to have a culture when you have 15 people and you're $20 million and you grow outside of that. So I think you got to understand what you value, but I will say the key things that don't change no matter how large you get is your ability to listen. Your ability to give your employees a voice, right? No matter if you have 25 employees or 1,000, they all have opinions, they all have voices, they all have situations that is important to them. And I think having a platform, now does that platform change from 25 people to 1,000? Yes. And the motive, how you deliver that definitely does. But I think if you keep what you're trying to get out of a culture the same, I think it can definitely scale with the company growing. So good question, but I think it comes down to just more thought leadership, more you're going to stumble a little bit more. And I think if you start small, giving your people the voice when you're little, and then you get bigger, they're going to tell you when you mess up. They're going to tell you when something's not great. And it may go to my next point that I haven't really hit on, and that was probably the hardest thing for me is you ask for this feedback, you're getting all these voices telling you what's going on and what you're not doing right, and as a leader, for me, I'm a people pleaser by nature, and hearing that is tough. And so I think you got to, instead of getting, and I have at times where I get defensive or that's not what I meant, or really working on just listening and taking it in and saying thank you. And what do I do with this information? And so I think that's a big piece, and that's something that I've done wrong in the past. When somebody's giving me feedback that I haven't taken the time to just listen and hear them, is I try to go into fix-it mode right then, and that's a quick way to shut them down and be like, oh, that didn't go too well. I'm not going to, I think I'm done telling Kyle what's wrong, right? And so that's probably a big flaw in a lot of leaders today, is they're like, yeah, Johnny, I hear you, but. And so that's something I'm really, really working on, is becoming more intentional with my listening and not doing the yeah, but. Because it's easy for somebody to shut down and just listen to what they have to say. Is it valid? It is in their eyes. And so that's you got to understand that, and where they're understanding where they're coming from and asking questions back to help them mold. Maybe they're not seeing the full picture, which is a lot of times the case, but not all the time. And so I think helping them understand both sides of the coin and looking at the opinion or whatever situation they have, or the idea that seems great. Here's the issue I have is this. Can you help me solve that? And at times they can. So that's awesome. That was a great question though. What are some free or cheap ways you can incorporate employee recognition and celebration? This is great. So I would say we've done every employee we have in our office fills out, I don't have this on hand, but there's probably 5 or 6 questions of what's their favorite candy, what's their favorite drink of choice, what is their favorite keep going, right? And so everybody in my office has that filled out, and if something happens, so there's an anniversary, there's a celebration, we have something to give them of substance. There's the worst thing you can do is give somebody a $10 Starbucks card and they don't drink coffee, right? It's not personalized, it's not well thought out, and so that's something that we have taken to try to do that. Just wishing somebody happy birthday, knowing it's their birthday. So we have a board In our office, a bunch of TV screens that talk about announcements and different things that are going on and accomplishments. So just celebrating people for that. If they qualify for our incentive trip, we talk about it, how they're pacing. If they close a big deal, we highlight it. So I think just recognition, public recognition is that's a really cheap way, but people like it. People like to be talked about. I mean, if they're doing a good job, everybody likes to know that. And then I think too, as far as, so I'm trying to think of some other free or cheap ways, but you don't have to go rent out a big, something and throw a $30,000 party to have some really good culture. I think there's some smaller things you can do. Take them to lunch. Take a group to lunch. Buy them lunch. Maybe they don't want you there. Buy, or even better, I mean, so as we're coming out of quarantine, everybody hasn't been out to eat. If you got, buy them a gift card to a restaurant they like and tell them to take a spouse, a girlfriend, boyfriend, a friend, whatever that may be. But I think those are some really cheap ways to do that, and it doesn't take much. So, what else? Anything else I'm missing? I think that is it on questions. But I think to wrap it up for us, at leadership, what we do is it just starts with, I think, leadership understanding that culture is important. And if culture is important to your leadership team, your team that works with you will get behind you in that. And I think it's understanding that just you're empathetic towards that, you care, and you want to build something great. And I think it kind of snowballs itself. And it will be as you're starting to ask for feedback. I think when I did, there would be like, does he really want to know? And they'll tell you a little bit, but you got to keep asking for that feedback, because then they're like, he really wants to know what I think. And then taking that, and then when you get the information, what do you do? And so I think I try to build some trust, some one-on-ones. Some of the information you got to keep confidential, so that could work with the trust factor a little bit, and how do you use that information. But I think just building that personal relationship definitely helps from the culture standpoint. So what else? I think that's all we have for today. So I wanted to say thanks for that. And if there's any other questions, follow us on Vaco Nashville on our Facebook page, Twitter, Instagram, Vaco Nashville. There's a ton of great thought leadership we're doing, and just about culture and resume tips and interview tips. And if you're looking for a job, Vaco Nashville is definitely the place. So thanks for joining us today, and look forward to seeing you again soon.